The warning alarm started screaming 3 hours later. Zira was resting on the small bed when the sound filled the ship. She jumped up, her heart pounding, her body ready to run even though there was nowhere to go. Daniel was already at the controls. His fingers moved fast over the buttons and screens. His face was calm, but his jaw was tight. "They found us," he said. "3 ships, coming in fast." Zira moved to stand beside him. Through the front window, she could see them. 3 dark shapes against the stars, growing larger every second. The pirates had not given up. They had tracked the Wanderer through the magnetic field of the gas giant, and now they were closing in. "We cannot outrun them," Zira said. "Their ships are faster." Daniel nodded. "I know. We cannot fight them." "You have no weapons." "I know that too." Zira grabbed his arm. "Then what do we do?" Daniel looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that she had not seen before. It was not fear. It was not panic. It was something else, something wild and alive. "We fly," he said. He pushed a lever forward, and the Wanderer jumped. The old ship groaned and shook, but it moved faster than Zira thought possible. The stars outside became long lines of light as they shot through space. The pirates followed. Their ships were sleek and new, built for speed and killing. They cut through the darkness like knives. Daniel turned the Wanderer toward the rings of the gas giant. Huge chunks of ice and rock floated there, some as big as mountains, some as small as houses. It was a maze of death, and Daniel flew straight into it. "Are you crazy?" Zira shouted. Daniel laughed. "Probably." The first asteroid came at them like a fist. Daniel pulled the ship hard to the left, and they slid past it with only meters to spare. Then another came from the right, and he dove down under it. Then 2 more at once, and he twisted the ship in a way that should have torn it apart. But the Wanderer held together. Somehow, it held together. Zira grabbed onto a handle on the wall and tried not to scream. The ship was shaking so hard that her teeth hurt. Through the window, she could see nothing but spinning rocks and flashing lights. Behind them, the pirates were struggling. Their fancy ships were not built for this kind of flying. One of them clipped an asteroid and spun away, smoke pouring from its side. The other 2 slowed down, trying to be more careful. But Daniel did not slow down. He pushed the Wanderer harder, diving deeper into the rings. "Come on, old girl," he muttered to his ship. "You can do this, just a little more." The ship seemed to respond. The engines roared louder. The shaking got worse. But they kept moving, faster and faster, dodging rocks that should have killed them 100 times over. One of the pirate ships gave up. It turned around and flew back out of the rings. But the last one kept coming. It was bigger than the others, with a pilot who was either very skilled or very stupid. Daniel watched it on his sensors. "He is not giving up. Can we lose him?" "Maybe, but I have a better idea." Daniel pulled the ship up, rising above the thickest part of the rings. The pirate followed, thinking they were trying to escape. But Daniel was not trying to escape. He was setting a trap. As soon as they were clear of the rocks, Daniel cut the engines. The Wanderer stopped so suddenly that Zira was thrown forward. She would have hit the window if Daniel had not grabbed her arm and pulled her back. The pirate ship shot past them, going too fast to stop. Daniel spun the Wanderer around, aiming their back end at the pirate. "What are you doing?" Zira asked. Daniel did not answer. He just pressed a button on his control panel. The cargo bay doors opened. A wave of junk flew out into space, old parts and broken machines and garbage that Daniel had been storing for years. It hit the pirate ship like a wall of metal. The pirate tried to dodge, but it was too late. The junk tore into his ship, ripping holes in the hull, smashing his engines. He spun out of control, tumbling through space like a leaf in a storm, but he was not done yet. As he spun, he fired one last shot. A beam of red light cut through the darkness and hit the Wanderer in the side. The ship screamed. Metal bent and broke. Something inside caught fire. Zira saw sparks flying everywhere, but Daniel was already moving. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed the flames. He ripped wires from the ceiling and reconnected them in new ways. He kicked a panel that was not working, and somehow it started working again. The whole time, he was muttering to his ship, "Stay with me, stay with me. We are almost there. Cannot quit on me now." And the ship did not quit. The fire died. The engines kept running. The Wanderer limped forward, hurt but alive. Zira watched Daniel work. She had never seen anything like it. He was not just fixing the ship. He was fighting for it. He was willing to burn his hands and break his bones to keep it alive. "You love this ship," she said. Daniel looked at her, his face covered in sweat and soot. "She is all I have. And she has never let me down." They flew away from the rings, away from the pirates, away from danger. Behind them, the damaged pirate ship drifted in the darkness, broken and helpless. Zira sat down heavily on the floor. Her legs would not hold her anymore. Her whole body was shaking. "That was impossible," she said. "What you just did was impossible." Daniel sat down beside her. He was breathing hard, and his hands were red from the heat of the repairs. But he was smiling. "Humans do not believe in impossible," he said. "We just see problems that have not been solved yet." Zira shook her head. She had grown up learning about all the species in the galaxy. She had studied their histories, their cultures, their ways of thinking. But nothing had prepared her for this. Humans were not like anyone else. They did not think like anyone else. They took risks that no sane being would take. They fought battles they could not win. They refused to accept defeat. "My people call your kind reckless," she said softly. "Dangerous. Unpredictable." Daniel shrugged. "We have been called worse. But that is not what I see." Zira looked at him, really looked at him, seeing past the tired eyes and the dirty clothes to the soul underneath. "I see someone who refuses to give up. Someone who keeps fighting even when there is no hope left." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and patted her shoulder gently. "There is always hope," he said. "Sometimes it is small. Sometimes it is hard to find. But it is always there, if you are willing to look for it." Zira did not know if she believed that. Her people were practical. They believed in facts and logic and careful planning. Hope was a nice idea, but it did not stop pirates or fix broken ships. And yet, here she was, alive, safe, because one strange human had refused to let her fall. Maybe, she thought, hope was more powerful than she had realized. Maybe it was the most powerful thing of all. Zira Velshin knew she was going to die. The thought came to her not with fear, but with a strange calm. Her ship was breaking apart around her. Fire burned in the walls. Smoke filled the air. The alarms had stopped screaming because there was nothing left to scream about. Everything was already lost. She was a scout for the Talvari people. Her kind were tall and thin, with silver-blue skin that shone like moonlight on water. Their eyes were large and dark, made for seeing in the dim light of their home world. They were a peaceful race. They studied the stars. They wrote poetry about the movements of planets. They did not fight wars, and that was why Zira was alone out here, in a small ship with no weapons. When the pirates found her, it had started as a simple mission. She was mapping the outer edges of a star system that her people wanted to explore. The work was quiet and easy. She had been humming an old song from her childhood when her sensors detected 3 ships coming toward her at high speed. At first, she thought they might be traders, or maybe lost travelers who needed help. The Talvari always helped those in need. It was their way. But then the first shot hit her ship. The blast tore through her shields like they were made of paper. Her vessel shook so hard that she fell from her chair. Before she could stand up, 2 more shots came. Then 3 more. Then she lost count. The pirates were not interested in talking. They were not interested in mercy. They wanted what she had, and they were willing to kill her to get it. Zira knew what they wanted. There was a small chip in her wrist, placed under her skin. It held maps of Talvari space, secret routes, hidden planets, safe passages that only her people knew about. These maps were worth more money than most beings would see in 10 lifetimes. She should have destroyed the chip. She knew that. But the attack had come too fast. There was no time. Now her ship was falling toward a moon below. It was a dead place, gray and cold, with no air and no life. When she hit the surface, she would die. There would be nothing left of her but dust and broken metal. Zira pulled herself to her feet. The floor was tilted now, and getting more tilted every second. She tried to reach the escape pod, but the door would not open. The systems were dead. Everything was dead. Through her front window, she could see the moon growing larger. She could see the craters and the mountains. She could see exactly where she would crash. The pirates did not follow her down. Why would they? They could pick through the wreckage after she was dead. They had all the time in the world. Zira moved to the center of her ship and sat down on the floor. She crossed her legs and placed her hands on her knees. This was how her people prepared for death. They did not run from it. They did not scream. They sat quietly and thought about the ones they loved. She thought about her mother, who had taught her to read the stars. She thought about her father, who had held her hand when she was small and afraid of the dark. She thought about her sister, who was probably looking at the sky right now, not knowing that Zira would never come home. Tears fell from her dark eyes, but she did not make a sound. Talvari did not cry out loud. They kept their pain inside, like a flame burning in a closed room. The ship shook again. Metal screamed. The window cracked. Zira closed her eyes. She whispered the old words, the prayer that her grandmother had taught her long ago. She asked the void to carry her spirit home. She asked the stars to remember her name. She asked for peace. The moon was very close now. She could feel the heat building as her ship entered the thin layer of dust that covered the surface. In a few seconds, it would all be over. She waited for the impact. She waited for the darkness. But instead, she felt something else. It felt like a giant hand had grabbed her ship. The falling stopped. The shaking stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Then her ship started moving again, but not down. It was moving sideways, being pulled by something she could not see. Zira opened her eyes. Through the cracked window, she could see another ship. It was ugly and old, covered in patches and repairs. It looked like it had been put together from 100 different vessels. But it was there, and it was pulling her toward it with a beam of blue light, a tractor beam. Someone was saving her. But who? The Talvari had no ships in this area. No one knew she was here. No one should have come. Her ship was pulled into a cargo bay. The blue light disappeared. She heard the sound of doors closing, and then the hiss of air filling the space around her. For a long moment, Zira did not move. She was afraid that this was a dream. She was afraid that she was already dead, and this was just her mind playing tricks on her. Then she heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps, not like the soft steps of her people. These were the footsteps of someone large and solid. A figure appeared at her broken window. It was not a Talvari. It was not any species she had seen before in person. Though she had studied pictures of them, it was a human. Humans were strange creatures. They were soft and fleshy, with skin in colors that ranged from pale to dark brown. They had small eyes and flat faces. They were young to space travel, only a few hundred years since they had left their home planet. Most species did not trust them. They were too wild, too emotional, too hard to predict. But this human was looking at her with something in his eyes that she did not expect. Concern. Worry. Care. He was a male. She could tell. He had short, dark hair and a face that looked tired but kind. He was wearing simple clothes, stained with grease and dirt. He pulled at her door, but it would not open. So he grabbed a tool from his belt and started cutting through the metal. Sparks flew everywhere, but he did not stop. When the door finally fell away, he reached inside and took her hand. His skin was warm, warmer than she expected, and his grip was strong but gentle. "Can you walk?" he asked. His voice was rough, like rocks scraping together. But there was something soft underneath it. Something real. Zira tried to stand, but her legs would not work. She had been sitting too long, and the fear had taken all her strength. The human did not wait for her to try again. He simply reached in, put his arms around her, and lifted her out of the broken ship like she weighed nothing at all. "I got you," he said. "You are safe now." Zira looked up at his face. She did not understand. She did not know why this stranger had saved her. She did not know what he wanted. But for the first time since the attack, she felt something that was not fear. She felt hope. The human carried Zira through his ship like she was made of glass. He moved carefully, watching where he stepped, making sure not to bump her against the walls. She could feel the strength in his arms, but also the gentleness. He was trying not to hurt her. His ship was a mess. That was the first thing she noticed. Wires hung from the ceiling. Tools lay scattered on the floor. The walls were covered in patches of different metals, like a quilt made from machine parts. It smelled strange, too, a mix of oil and something else, something organic that she could not name. But it was warm. And it had air. And she was alive. The human set her down on a small bed in what seemed to be a sleeping area. The bed was old and worn, but clean. He pulled a blanket over her legs and then stepped back, giving her space. "My name is Daniel," he said. "Daniel Cruz. This is my ship, the Wanderer. You are safe here." Zira looked at him. Her voice came out weak and thin. "Why?" Daniel tilted his head. "Why what? Why did you save me? You do not know me. You had nothing to gain." The human seemed confused by the question. He scratched the back of his head and made a sound that might have been a laugh, but not quite. "You were falling," he said simply. "I saw you falling, and I caught you. That is all." Zira did not understand. Among her people, everything had a reason. Every action had a purpose. You did not risk your life for strangers. You did not put yourself in danger for someone you had never met. It made no sense, but Daniel did not seem to think there was anything strange about it. He just shrugged his shoulders and walked to a small cooking area. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I do not have much, but I can make some soup. It is not great, but it is warm." Zira shook her head. She was not hungry. Her stomach was still tight with fear and confusion. But she watched him anyway, trying to understand this strange creature. Daniel moved around his ship like he belonged there. He touched the walls sometimes, running his fingers over the patches and repairs. Once, he spoke to the ship itself, saying something like, "Come on, old girl." When a light flickered. It was odd. Very odd. "How long have you lived on this ship?" Zira asked. Daniel poured something into a pot and set it over a small flame. "About 12 years now. Found her in a scrapyard. Nobody wanted her. She was broken and old, and everyone said she would never fly again. But you fixed her." "I did." Daniel smiled, and for a moment, his tired face looked younger. "Took me 3 years. Had to find every part myself. Had to learn how to fix things I had never seen before. But I did it. And now she's the best ship in the galaxy." Zira looked around at the messy, patched, worn-out vessel. She did not think it was the best ship in the galaxy. She did not think it was even close. But she did not say that. The human clearly loved this place, and she did not want to hurt his feelings. "Your ship," Daniel said, "is gone. I am sorry. I pulled you out just before impact." But there was nothing left to save. Zira nodded. She had known this already, but hearing it spoken out loud made it real. Her beautiful scout vessel, given to her by her people, was now just dust and broken metal on a dead moon. "The pirates," she said. "They are still out there." Daniel nodded. "I saw them on my sensors. 3 ships. They pulled back when I grabbed you. I think they are waiting to see what I do." "They want something I have," Zira said. She touched her wrist, where the chip was hidden under her skin. "Information. Maps. They will not stop until they get it." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to his soup and stirred it slowly. "Then I guess they will be disappointed." Zira sat up straighter. "You do not understand. These are dangerous beings. They will kill you. They will destroy your ship. You should let me go. Give me a small pod, and I will draw them away. You can escape." Daniel laughed. It was a real laugh this time, warm and loud. It filled the small space like music. "Lady," he said, "I did not pull you out of the fire just to throw you back in. You are staying right here. We will figure this out together." Zira did not know what to say. She had never met anyone like this before. Her people were kind, yes, but they were also careful. They calculated risks. They weighed costs and benefits. They did not laugh in the face of danger. But this human, this Daniel Cruz, seemed to think that danger was just another problem to solve. "You are strange," she said finally. Daniel grinned. "I have been told that before. Usually right before someone tries to kill me." He poured some soup into a small bowl and brought it to her. It was brown and chunky, not like anything Zira had ever eaten. But it smelled warm, and she realized that she was actually a little hungry after all. She took a small sip. It was salty and thick, with bits of something soft floating in it. It was not good, but it was not bad either. It was just food. "What is this made from?" she asked. Daniel sat down across from her with his own bowl. "Potatoes, carrots, some protein paste. I found the vegetables on a trading station about a month ago. They were almost rotten, but I saved what I could." Zira took another sip. She had never heard of potatoes or carrots before, but she did not want to seem rude, so she kept eating. They sat in silence for a while, eating their soup. The ship hummed around them, old engines working hard to keep everything running. Through a small window, Zira could see stars sliding past. They were moving away from the moon, away from the wreckage of her ship. "Where are we going?" she asked. Daniel pointed toward a large planet in the distance. It was surrounded by rings of ice and rock. "There, the gas giant has a strong magnetic field. It will mess with their sensors. We can hide in the shadow of one of its moons while we make a plan." Zira nodded. It was a good idea. Simple, but smart. She finished her soup and set the bowl aside. Her body was starting to feel normal again. The shaking had stopped. Her breath was steady. "I still do not understand you," she said softly. "Among my people, we would not do what you did. We would calculate the risk. We would decide if it was worth it. Most would say no." Daniel set down his own bowl and looked at her with those strange, small human eyes. "And what about you?" he asked. "What would you say?" Zira thought about it. She thought about the fear she had felt as her ship fell. She thought about closing her eyes and waiting to die. She thought about what it meant to give up. "I do not know," she admitted. "I have never been in this situation before. I have never had to choose." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "That is the thing about choices. You never really know what you will do until the moment comes. All you can do is hope that when it matters, you do the right thing. And saving me was the right thing." Daniel smiled. It was a small smile, tired but true. "Lady, I have made a lot of wrong choices in my life. But that one? That one felt right. And sometimes, that is all you have to go on." Zira looked at this strange human, this Daniel Cruz, sitting in his broken ship in the middle of empty space. He had nothing. He had no army, no weapons, no support. He was alone, and yet he had saved her anyway. Maybe she thought the galaxy had been wrong about humans. Maybe they were not wild or dangerous or unpredictable. Maybe they were just brave. They drifted in the shadow of a small moon for 6 hours. The Wanderer was hurt badly, and Daniel needed time to make repairs. Zira tried to help, but she did not understand human technology. Everything was different from what she knew. So she watched instead. She watched Daniel crawl through tight spaces and climb up broken ladders. She watched him cut and weld and patch. She watched him work until his hands were raw and his body was shaking with exhaustion. And then she noticed the blood. It was dripping onto the floor from under his shirt. A thin line of red, falling drop by drop onto the metal. "You are hurt," she said. Daniel did not stop working. "It is nothing. It is not nothing. You are bleeding." He finally stopped. He looked down at his side, and his face went pale. Zira realized that he had not even known. The adrenaline of the chase had kept him from feeling the pain. Slowly, he pulled up his shirt. Zira gasped. A piece of metal was sticking out of his side. It was about the length of her hand, and it was buried deep in his flesh. Blood was flowing freely now, soaking his clothes. "During the attack," Daniel said, his voice tight, "when that last shot hit us, I did not realize." Zira grabbed his arm. "You need help. You need a medical facility." Daniel shook his head. "The nearest station is 2 days away. I will not make it." "Then what do we do?" Daniel pointed to a box on the wall. "There is a medkit in there. Bring it to me." Zira ran to the box and pulled it open. Inside was a collection of bandages, bottles, and strange tools she did not recognize. She brought the whole thing back to Daniel. He sat down heavily on the floor. His breathing was getting shorter, and his skin was turning gray. The blood was pooling under him now, spreading across the metal like a dark mirror. "I am going to need your help," he said. "I cannot do this alone." Zira nodded. She was scared, more scared than she had been during the pirate attack. This was different. This was life draining out of a man who had saved her. "Tell me what to do." Daniel walked her through it. First, she had to clean around the wound with a liquid that smelled sharp and burned her fingers. Then she had to grip the piece of metal and pull it out slowly, being careful not to make the damage worse. When she pulled, Daniel screamed. It was a terrible sound, raw and full of pain. Zira almost stopped, but he grabbed her hand and forced her to keep going. The metal came free. Blood poured out faster now, and Zira pressed a bandage against the wound as hard as she could. "Good," Daniel whispered. "Now the sealer." He pointed to a small tube. Zira opened it and squeezed the contents onto the wound. It was a thick gel that hardened as soon as it touched the blood. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. Daniel fell back against the wall. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was shallow. For a terrible moment, Zira thought he was dead. But then he opened his eyes and smiled weakly. "Not bad," he said. "You would make a good medic." Zira did not feel like smiling. She felt sick. Her hands were covered in human blood, and the man who had saved her life was lying on the floor, barely alive. "Why do you live like this?" she asked. The question came out before she could stop it. Daniel opened his eyes again. "What do you mean?" "This life. This ship. Flying alone through dangerous space, with no one to help you. No one to catch you if you fall. Zira gestured at the blood on the floor, at the patched walls, at the broken ship. Why choose this? Daniel was quiet for a long time. His breathing steadied, and some color started to return to his face. The gel was working, healing him from the inside. I had a family once, he said finally. A wife, a daughter. We lived on a colony near the edge of human space. Zira sat down beside him. She did not say anything. She just listened. Raiders came one day. Not pirates, something worse. They did not want money or goods. They just wanted to destroy. Daniel's voice was flat, empty. I was away on a trading run. By the time I got back, everything was gone. Everyone was gone. Zira felt her heart break for this man. She had lost people too. Elders who had passed from old age, friends who had moved to distant systems. But nothing like this. Nothing so sudden and violent. After that, I could not stay in one place, Daniel continued. Could not sit still. Could not just exist while the galaxy kept turning. So I started flying. Started helping people who needed it. Started catching people who were falling. He looked at her, and his eyes were bright with pain that had nothing to do with the wound in his side. Because I could not catch them, he said. My wife, my daughter. I was not there. I could not save them. So now I save everyone else. Anyone I can find. Anyone who needs help. Zira understood now. She understood everything. Daniel was not reckless. He was not crazy. He was a man trying to fill an emptiness that could never be filled. He was trying to make up for the ones he could not save by saving everyone else. It was beautiful and sad and terrible all at once. I am sorry, she said softly. I am so sorry for what happened to you. Daniel shrugged. It was a long time ago. The pain does not go away, but you learn to carry it. Zira looked at his body, at the scars that covered his arms and chest. She had noticed them before, but now she understood what they meant. Each one was a story. Each one was a battle he had fought for someone else. You have been hurt many times, she said. Many times, Daniel agreed. And I probably will be hurt many more times before I am done. Does it not make you want to stop? Does it not make you want to give up? Daniel laughed softly. It hurt him, and he winced, but he laughed anyway. Every day, he admitted. Every single day, I think about stopping. Finding a quiet planet somewhere. Settling down. Letting someone else catch the people who fall. But you do not stop. No. Daniel shook his head. Because every time I save someone, every time I pull someone out of the fire, I see my daughter's face. I see my wife smile. And I think maybe this is what they would have wanted. Maybe this is how I honor them. Zira reached out and took his hand. His skin was cold now, and she could feel him shaking. But he squeezed her fingers gently, and she felt a connection that went beyond words. You are a good man, Daniel Cruz, she said. The best man I have ever met. Daniel smiled. I am just a man who could not save his family. Nothing more. No, Zira said firmly. You are much more than that. You are proof that even in the darkest galaxy, there are still lights burning. You are proof that kindness exists, even when everything else is cruel. Daniel closed his eyes. His breathing was slow and steady now. The wound was healing, and sleep was pulling him under. Before he faded away, he whispered one more thing. Thank you, Zira, for listening, for understanding. And then he slept, there on the cold floor of his broken ship. While Zira kept watch over him through the long hours of the night, she did not sleep. She did not look away. She had been saved by this man. Now it was her turn to watch over him. 3 days passed before the rescue ship arrived. Zira had used Daniel's communication systems to send out an emergency signal. It was weak, and the Wanderer's damaged equipment could barely push it past the moon they were hiding behind. But somehow, it reached Talvari space. When the large silver ship appeared in the window, Zira felt tears running down her face. She had never been so happy to see her people's flag. Daniel was sitting up now. The gel had done its work, and while he was still pale and weak, he could move on his own. He looked at the approaching ship with quiet interest. "Friends of yours?" he asked. "My people," Zira said. "They came for me." The Talvari vessel was beautiful in a way that Daniel's ship was not. It was smooth and elegant, with graceful curves and shining surfaces. It looked like a work of art floating through space. A docking tube extended from the rescue ship and connected to the Wanderer's airlock. There was a hiss of air, and then the door opened. The first Talvari through the door was tall, even for their kind. His silver blue skin was darker with age, and his large eyes held the wisdom of centuries. He wore the robes of a captain, decorated with symbols of honor. His name was Sorel Venkai, and Zira knew him well. He was a friend of her father, a respected elder among her people. "Zira Velshan," Sorel said, his voice deep and formal. "We feared you were lost." Zira stood and bowed in the traditional way. "I nearly was, elder, but I was saved." Sorel's eyes moved past her to Daniel, who was trying to stand but struggling. Two cavalry guards stepped forward, their hands on the weapons at their sides. "A human," Sorel said. There was no warmth in his voice. In this area of space, alone, Daniel finally got to his feet. He swayed a little, but he stayed upright. He met the elder's gaze without fear. "My name is Daniel Cruz," he said. "I saw her ship being attacked. I pulled her out before she crashed." Sorel studied him for a long moment. His face gave nothing away. Among the Talvari, emotions were kept hidden, especially in front of strangers. "Why?" Sorel asked. "You risked your life and your vessel for one of our kind. You had nothing to gain." It was the same question Zira had asked 3 days ago. And Daniel gave the same answer. "She was falling. I caught her. That is all." The guards looked at Sorel, waiting for orders. Zira could see the doubt in their eyes. Humans were not trusted. Humans were not welcome. Everything they had been taught said that this man was dangerous. But Zira stepped forward. She stood between Daniel and the guards, facing her own people. "This man saved my life," she said. "He fought pirates for me. He nearly died for me. He asked for nothing in return." "It could be a trap," one of the guards said. "He could be working with the pirates. He is not." Zira's voice was firm. "I have spent 3 days with him. I have seen his heart. There is no evil in him, only kindness." Sorel raised a hand, and the guard stepped back. He walked past Zira and stopped in front of Daniel. The two beings faced each other, the ancient Talvari and the young human, studying each other in silence. "Your ship is damaged," Sorel said finally. Daniel nodded. "She has seen better days. You are injured." "I have had worse." Sorel's eyes moved over the Wanderer, taking in the patches, the repairs, the signs of a life lived on the edge of survival. Then he looked back at Daniel. "You live alone," he said. "You travel through dangerous space. You help strangers. Why?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was steady. "Because someone has to. The galaxy is cold and dark, and most people will let you fall. I decided to be the one who catches." Sorel stared at him. Zira held her breath, and then something happened that she had never seen before. Sorel Venkai, respected elder of the Talvari people, smiled. It was small, just a slight curve of his thin lips. But it was real. "The Talvari have long believed that humans are reckless and dangerous," Sorel said. "We have kept our distance from your kind. We have watched you from afar and judged you unworthy of trust." Daniel said nothing. He just waited. but I see now that we were wrong. Sorel placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder, a gesture of deep respect among the Talvari. You are not reckless. You are brave. You are not dangerous. You are kind. You are exactly what this galaxy needs more of. Zira felt tears falling down her face again. This time, they were tears of joy. Sorel turned to his crew. We will take this ship in tow. We will repair it in our docks. And we will treat this man as a friend of the Talvari people. The guards looked shocked, but they obeyed. Within an hour, the Wanderer was connected to the Talvari ship by a web of tractor beams. Being pulled gently through space, Daniel sat in the medical bay of the rescue ship while Talvari doctors examined his wound. They were amazed that he had survived. They said that the damage should have killed any of their kind. Humans are strong, Daniel said simply. We do not give up easy. When the doctors were done, Zira came to visit him. She sat beside his bed and looked at him with those large, dark eyes. My people will not forget what you did, she said. They will tell stories about you. The human who caught the falling Talvari. The man who asked for nothing. Daniel shook his head. I do not need stories. I do not need fame. I just did what anyone should do. But that is the point, Zira said. Anyone should do it. But very few actually do. You are special, Daniel Cruz, whether you believe it or not. They sat in silence for a while. Through the window, Zira could see her home system growing larger. The purple and green planets of her childhood. The twin suns that warmed her skin. She was going home, but she felt sad too. Sad because she was leaving this strange human behind. What will you do now? She asked. Daniel shrugged. Same thing I always do. Fly. Help people. Try to make the galaxy a little less dark. Alone? It is how I work best. Zira reached out and took his hand. She pressed her forehead to his, the Talvari gesture of deep gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Daniel's hand squeezed hers gently. Just pay it forward. Next time you see someone falling, catch them. Zira nodded. I will. I promise. When the rescue ship reached the Talvari home world, there was a ceremony. Sorel Venkai himself presented Daniel with a Medal of Honor, the first ever given to a human. The crowd was silent at first, unsure how to react. But then Zira started clapping. It was a human gesture she had learned from Daniel. And slowly, one by one, the other Talvari joined in. The sound filled the great hall, a thundering wave of appreciation. Daniel stood there, looking uncomfortable but grateful. He was not used to being thanked. He was not used to being seen. But maybe, Zira thought, it was time for him to be seen. Time for the galaxy to know that humans were not something to fear. They were something to hope for. When the ceremony was over, Daniel returned to his ship. The Wanderer was fully repaired now, better than she had been in years. The Talvari engineers had upgraded her engines and fixed her hull. She gleamed under the lights. Daniel ran his hand along her side. You look good, old girl. Zira stood beside him. You could stay, you know. My people would welcome you. Daniel smiled. I know. But there are other people falling out there. Other strangers who need catching. I cannot rest while they are still falling. Zira understood. She did not argue. She watched as he climbed into his ship. She watched as the engines lit up, strong and steady. She watched as the Wanderer rose into the sky, growing smaller and smaller until it was just a speck of light among the stars. And then he was gone. But Zira never forgot him. And neither did her people. For generations to come, the Talvari would tell the story of the human who caught the falling scout. The man who asked for nothing. The light in the darkness. And whenever a Talvari saw someone falling, they would remember Daniel's words. Catch them. Always catch them.